Hello everyone, Alec Elger the SideQuest Gamer here, and welcome to the finale of my Donkey Kong 8-bit retrospective. And today I will look at Donkey Kong 3 to wrap things up. And it is quite the different experience than you would expect out of a sequel to the beloved Donkey Kong Jr. But do the differences necessarily make the game bad? Well, let's find out. Donkey Kong 3 is the third entry in the Donkey Kong series, obviously, and came out to arcades in 1983. While people who remember this threequel like it to an extent, heck, I bet a few people like it the most in the trilogy. Many have stated it was too much of a departure from the platforming roots that Donkey Kong was known for. They weren't saying it was bad by any means, it just didn't need to exist, at least with Donkey Kong characters in it. Jumping over enemies? Gone. Platforming obstacles in an attempt to get to the top? Gone. Donkey Kong characters? Well, there's Donkey Kong. That's it. No Jumpman, no DK Jr. It's just the Big Ape, and he's back in business because now he's in some greenhouse harassing bugs that will destroy Stan's flowers. I'm not sure why Stan the Bugman, the protagonist of this game, would keep insects that would destroy his plants in a greenhouse. That would be stupid. Regardless, it's up to Stan the Bugman to stop Donkey Kong from causing mischief in his greenhouse, and this game is kind of a shooter. It's not like Galaga or anything, but you play as Stan the Bugman who can jump on stairs as well as move to the left and right pretty quickly, while his offensive capabilities is his bug spray gun that he uses not only to kill the bugs that are taking away his plants, but you also need to shoot Donkey Kong repeatedly, with the stage not ending until he climbs as far up as possible to escape the bug spray. The bug spray you have has a close range attack, but what you really want is a power-up that gives your bug spray a longer range and allows for you to shoot DK up the vines faster than the normal spray. This game is quite challenging, in fact I dare say the most challenging in the trilogy, due to not only having different bug types with the harder ones shooting 8 directional projectiles when killed, but also you have to switch between shooting DK and shooting the bugs, essentially multitasking, which is easier said than done. If you ignore DK for too long, he will drop and kill you. If you let the bugs do their thing, they will destroy all the plants, essentially making you lose a life. It's quite the fast-paced challenge, and I admire the game for that. I also admire how the game's level design is really simple where it needs to be, with the difficulty curve only increasing naturally, not just by different level arrangements, but mostly with newer and tougher enemy types. And the game is quite short, having 3 stages before looping, and getting harder and harder every time. The first stage is just a 3 steps, the second stage has a staircase with a second set of steps being divided in 2, but the only stage that has a total level design change is the third stage where you have to shoot DK until he plunges his head into a beehive, ending his mischief once and for all. Well, before looping. But there are unique obstacles in this stage, like those vine worms that can protect Donkey Kong from being fired upon and will stay in place if shot, which could make it really easy for Donkey Kong to slide down the 2 really short vines and kill you instantly. And after that, the game loops over and over, and I won't lie when I say it's quite fun to just play until the game over happens. And despite being a major departure from the platformer genre it established, Donkey Kong 3 succeeds in what it wanted to do. I will always have a lot of respect for Donkey Kong and Donkey Kong Jr. just because they helped establish the platformer as a genre in video games. But Donkey Kong 3 I believe holds up the best in the trilogy as a game in its own right. For one, there's nothing quite like it, and 2, the controls make the game more fun than the stiff controlling Jumpman. I know, apples and oranges, and these controls are by no means perfect, but I do get a kick out of the quick experience they provide for this type of game. While I wouldn't say it's an evolution of the DK formula due to being a departure, and is probably the follow-up most people didn't expect, it does at least improve upon the visuals, with Stan having quite the expressive sprite, and DK having more detail to his face. If you want to play a good port of this game, the NES port, while it lacks the vector line background the arcade version had, I will go as far as to say it's arcade perfect for the most part. I see myself playing it as often as I would Balloon Fight. And overall, despite its differences from the predecessors, I'd say that Donkey Kong 3 is pretty good. Easily my favorite in the trilogy. But sadly, after this came Donkey Kong Jr. Math, and then that was it. The franchise just kind of died. Despite being a recognizable franchise at this point, Donkey Kong 3 was the last we ever saw of the Big Ape for quite a while, as Nintendo seemed to move on to bigger and better things. From the release of the NES in 1985 over in North America, popularizing the Super Mario Bros., to the 1986 release of the popular Legend of Zelda adventure game, Nintendo did port the Donkey Kong arcade games on their NES home console, but a new Donkey Kong game just didn't happen since 1983. It was just the console ports from then on. For 11 years, not one new Donkey Kong game surfaced in North America. Until June of 1994, when a Game Boy game called Donkey Kong came around. It had the first 4 arcade levels that starred Mario, but the rest of the game was entirely new levels, featuring puzzle platforming that's challenging but fun. This was the evolution of the Donkey Kong arcade games. And it didn't stop there, as November of 1994, we saw the release of the pre-rendered 3D SNES game called Donkey Kong Country, the first DK game to be a side-scrolling platformer, and it was very successful, being one of the best-selling SNES games of all time. And the rest is history. While the Donkey Kong arcade trilogy isn't perfect by any means, and I'd rather play the country games over them any day of the week, Nintendo wouldn't be where they are if it wasn't for this crazy ape. And that wraps up this rather short retrospective. Thank you all so much for watching, and especially to those who watched all 4 parts and have been supportive of this little project. But I have a bigger project I'm working on, and the first video of that project will come next month. Stay tuned for that, because that'll be a much bigger retrospective, but it's one I always wanted to do for quite a while now. So please tune into that. Thank you all so much for watching, and remember to stay awesome.